Can you guys talk about what the negotiation was like with Syfy to bring the books to television?
Well, you're jumping some steps there, because actually the production company is Alcon,
Right.
and they're the ones who actually produced the show. I cannot speak to what the negotiation was between Alcon and Syfy, but I also can't speak to the negotiation with Alcon for us because our agent did that.
Yeah, the negotiation from our perspective was our agent came and said, "Hey, the guys who wrote Iron Man and Children of Men would like to write a pilot for your book," and we said, that would be yes. That sounds. And in fairness, there were other people who were interested in doing it, but who, while lovely people, had not written Iron Man and Children of Men. We
had to go with them.
And then we met Mark and Hawk, and they were lovely people and really talented. And when it got picked up by Alcon and by Syfy, they asked if we wanted to come play, and we did. So we've been doing that for the last few years.
So how often are you guys in the writer's room with this now?
Well, it kind of depends on when it opens and closes, but in between those two, one or the other or both of us have been there the whole time.
That's pretty unprecedented.
That is a terrible idea, and no one should ever do that, but we got away with it, so it's great.
I mean, the only reason I have been in the writer's room every day that it was open. The only reason Daniel wasn't is because he has at the time 8 or 9 or 10-year-old daughter that he had to.
Who doesn't live in LA.
Who doesn't live in LA. But yeah, no, we worked with Mark and Hawk when they first started working on the pilot. And then we hired a gentleman named Narain Shankar as the showrunner. And for the first season, we formed what we called the Small Council, which was Narain, Mark and Hawk, and us. And we beat out that first season. And then we were in the room when they started hiring writers and wrote an episode for the first season. And then when the second season rolled around, I went back to LA and we came for a while.
I came for like the first half.
Yeah, and then I was in LA till we were done, and they let us write 2 episodes for the second season.
So we've been up doing the production thing too, and it's
Awesome.
Yeah.
What are some of the differences between writing for the book and then also being in the writer's room with other writers writing episodes for the show? I mean, are you finding any major differences or things you had to learn to adjust with?
The thing that's weird about this particular set of books is it was a collaboration going in. I mean, it's already not exactly either of our projects. So having the pool of people who are working on it that's not me, that's kind of baked in from the beginning.
Yeah.
So not being worried about changing stuff, not being precious about stuff, I think was easier for us than it would be under other circumstances, or would be for other projects that are, not already that.
So did you have any moments while you're in the writer's room with all these other people collaborating with you that maybe pitched the idea that led the story down a path that you never thought about and really was a developing aspect to it?
There is
of course.
There, specifically for me, there's a thing in the second season where 2 characters who don't actually meet up in the books spend a bunch of time together in a way that is really interesting and really illuminating of the characters, and made me really happy that we got to do that, because it had never occurred to me.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that makes us very comfortable, is that the approach is always, let's not make the story smaller, let's make the story bigger. So rather than take things out, let's find ways that we can do exactly what he's talking about, where you take 2 characters who never met in the books, let's put them together and see what that looks like. So you actually make a larger story out of it rather than a smaller story. In the first season, the early introduction of the Christian Abasarala character was, I thought, a masterstroke. It was amazing. And we keep trying to find things like that. How can we add more to it by bringing characters in early or having them interact with each other?
How do you work together?
Well, the way it began is we got together on Wednesdays because it was Ty's day off, and we'd outline the whole novel, and we'd be wrong. But we'd get the first bit right, and Ty would write a chapter, and I would write a chapter, and then we'd swap, and Ty would edit mine, and I would edit his, and then we'd play Xbox, and that would be the day.
Yeah.
So you just kept doing it till it was over.
The Leviathan Wakes was both basically written on Wednesdays.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
How long did that take?
A
About
year.
a year. I mean, when you're doing 3,000 word chapters a week, you're getting 6,000 words a week on your book. You get through it pretty quick. I mean, it's a first draft and it's terrible, but then you fix that. So it's
And do you do the same thing with the scripts?
no. With the scripts, you kind of come in with an outline.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mostly our process for writing the scripts is I lay on a couch and I go, what if this happened? And it looked like this. And Daniel types, and about half of what he's typing is the random crap that I'm saying, and half of it is him coming up with his idea. So
I don't check. I just
he just types.
I have the keyboard.
So we
I have
wind
the
up with
power.
this sort of mix of me just randomly tossing stuff out, and I tend to my story sense is really granular, so like I tend to think in lines of dialogue. So I'm just sitting there going, oh, and then this guy says this, and then this guy says this, and then they have this argument, and then he's more going off the outline and getting actual story points in there, and sort of how it works.
And then afterwards I give it to Ty and he fixes it, and he gives it back to me and I fix that, and then we give it to Narain and he fixes it, and that continues right up to post-production.
We're going to wrap here in about 1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute, okay.
Yeah.
And it all works. What about the casting and seeing the characters that you created kind of come to life? What's that feeling like?
It's really cool, and it's not something that worked the way I expected it to. I came into it, I think, like most writers would, with very specific physical things that I wanted in the cast, and some of the cast has that, and some of them don't. But one of the things that Narain told us very early on is we were talking about I wanted a character to be taller, and he said height doesn't act. It turns out he was right. It's much better. It's sort of like drafting in the NFL. You always take the best player on the board. Don't worry about stuffing them into a box. And so when we were casting, sometimes we got characters that didn't quite look exactly like the way I thought they would, but they're great actors and they're delivering the goods. And I've realized now that's much better. That's much more useful. That completely changed how I view casting.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.